For some time now, I've been saying that Top Gun Maverick is my most anticipated movie of 2022. For me, the most highly anticipated movie for next year is Top Gun Maverick. Let's go into May. They got two movies that are right in my wheelhouse, and one that I mentioned last year was my most anticipated movie of this year. It's Top Gun Maverick. Top Gun Maverick has that potential to be that amazing sequel that Top Gun deserves to have.
Bro, you think I'm honestly curious because I think it's going to be good. Do you think it's going to be
Yeah.
good? There's no way it's going to be good, right? Like the trailer makes it look good. The amount of hype and the amount of buildup, and ever since like the push, and it gets pushed a few times. It was supposed to come out like 3 years in a row now. I don't know what's going on. There's no fucking way it could any movie. No movie has ever lived up to this.
Now, after having a chance to finally see it for myself, I can easily say that this is probably one of the best sequels I've ever seen. And I would say and even argue that this is probably the quintessential summer blockbuster movie. And we haven't had a chance to see something like this in a very long time. So I'm excited to talk about it. Let's dive right in.
Having any fun yet?
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Renee here, Low-Key Geek, and I'm solo today. Usually I do these type of movie reviews lately with my buddy and fellow movie time partner, Blake Wolf, but due to scheduling conflicts and the fact that he hasn't had a chance to see the movie yet, it's just me. But I am more than happy to be your captain for this ride today, and I thank you all for tuning in and joining me on this review / discussion of Top Gun Maverick. So I'm very excited to talk about this. When it comes to sequels, and in my opinion, what makes a really great sequel, there are several factors involved in that, right? I would say that a sequel should pay certain homage to the original movie, but without relying on every little bit of detail and aspect that the original movie kind of put forth out there. When I say that, for example, if you're talking about a sequel coming out 36 years after the original movie, I like to see things that, don't heavily rely on that nostalgia factor. And I think that we've seen issues like that with sequels recently of movies that came out a long time ago. I also think a sequel should do enough to progress the main characters, moving them forward, and not seeing a stagnant progression or a lack of progression or whatever the case is. But also providing more depth and more progression in the story and in the universe and all that, without having to rehash a lot of the things that we've seen in the original movie. And Top Gun Maverick is one of those movies that does a really good job at keeping that balance where, there was a good enough amount of homage to the nostalgia factor of the original movie, but not heavily relying on it. The characters that we, grew up, or I should say grew up, but that we were introduced to with the original movie 36 years ago, and that we've, formed our own love for those type of characters. They were provided a lot more depth and progression. We've seen changes with these characters and them dealing with additional changes that they have to move forward with. And in this case, it's basically Maverick, Pete Mitchell. We see him later, much later in his life, right? And, we learn about the stuff that he's gone through and what he's going through now and kind of how he has to deal with those type of changes. The movie as a whole, and this is going to be a spoiler-free portion of this video right now, and we'll get into spoiler-specific stuff in a little bit. But the movie as a whole was really such a feel-good, fun, entertaining movie. And when I was watching the movie, it brought back a lot of memories of me watching movies growing up, especially when you watch movies with your parents or with your family. In the 80s and 90s, going out to movies was sometimes a family thing, or you did it with your friends, a group of friends. And especially in a summertime setting, you're looking for a great escape, right? You're looking to get fully entertained. Obviously, you want to get away from the heat and all that, depending on where you are. And you just want to have a full fun ride. And I really felt like that in this movie. And this movie also provides many things for many different people looking for different things. Fans of the original movie, you get a good amount of fan service without, again, like I said, relying on that nostalgia factor too much from the original. Those looking for romance or, sweet, heartfelt moments, you get that here. This movie at many times was very emotional. And it wasn't just me. I saw the audience react to it as the movie was playing. Another great thing about this movie, too, is that you got yourselves the action aspect. We don't really see movies like this anymore where, you're dealing with fighter pilots and, an army, or in this case, Navy setting or military setting that is more on a positive note in a way. It's like not so serious, but yet there is a pending mission that has to be accomplished. And the main focus is just that mission and not an overarching conflict. Because the one thing that's great about Top Gun is that it's been very ambiguous as to who the main enemy is. In the original movie, they don't really mention the country that we were at war against or that we had a conflict against. And you get pretty much the same sense here, but you got your action stuff really covered. So if you're into the action and the dogfighting scenes and all that, you got yourself covered here. And with technology these days and with special effects and all that stuff like that, and knowing that Tom Cruise is such a nut that he did a lot of his own flying and was actually in a fighter jet during a lot of these scenes, I felt most of the time I was wondering which scene is real or which isn't. In the original movie, you could tell that they were in this like made up cockpit and all people are doing just like looking around, and the pilots are just like focused on straight on, flying the plane and doing what they have to do. Here, you see stuff happening around them, and it looked so real. It really put you in those moments, and it provided a lot of tension, a lot of suspense. I felt myself like almost at the edge of my seat, and I know that's like a very like cliche thing to say, but I really felt it. I felt like my hands were gripped on the sides or holding on to my bucket of popcorn and all that. So really, really great stuff there. And there was a lot of good comedy in this movie. There were a lot of moments that was extremely charming and, got good laughs from myself and from the audience. Again, you don't really see and experience movies like this anymore where, obviously you have your major blockbusters with the Marvel movies and Star Wars and all that stuff like that. But with a movie that is so dear to a lot of people's hearts, and there's only been one of them, and there's never been further expansion into the lore, the universe, and all that, except maybe for the video games. But there wasn't like any TV series or straight to DVD or home video kind of sequels or what have you. This is a pure continuation of something that all of us has seen 36 years ago, or maybe some of you have seen it maybe more recently. And it still felt fresh. It still felt, new. Yes, we are reintroduced to certain characters and scenarios, but everything, on its own felt new and really, really like a brand new story and chapters being told. And I thought it was so well done in that aspect. And I think the writers and director were very aware of some of the things that maybe didn't make so much sense in the first movie, some of the things that we kind of poke fun at, like the volleyball scene or what have you, or maybe the made too quick to happen relationship and romance between Maverick and the Kelly McGillis character, right? So what they did here is that they kind of took those parts and really put more depth in it and made those things have purpose. And they kind of just, as if course corrected, or just went back and corrected everything that was kind of hokey in the original movie and made it more meaningful here. And that is something that you don't really see that with sequels, right? You've seen other sequels sometimes, when they try to go back and correct a lot of things from the past, or rewrite certain things, and kind of retcon, as they like to say it in the movie industry, all that. But the writing and the direction of this movie did a really good job at paying homage to Tony Scott's original directing, and it felt like at times you were watching one of those classic 80s types of movies, but with a really fresh and modern twist to it, so that it can appeal to everybody. And again, I was not expecting to love this movie that much. Yes, it was anticipated and I was really looking forward to it, but I really did my best to go into this thing without such high expectations, right? And I think even if I did allow myself to get drawn into that, I still left extremely satisfied, and I felt like this movie did everything I was hoping it would do. And it was just really a phenomenal movie, and I can't speak more highly about it, because it's definitely a movie that is meant to be seen on the big screen in a group, because it again, it's one of those great communal experiences that you go to the movies for in the first place, or at least one of the reasons why you go to the movies, right? And I think they did a really good job. Now, you watch interviews with Tom Cruise now, and he keeps saying that there's no way that this was ever going to be released on streaming without it hitting theaters, without it having its home in the theater, because so many people worked on it. And you can really tell that this was a labor of love, not only to Tom Cruise, but to everyone else involved in it. They wanted to give this thing a proper treatment. There have been years and years and years of talk about a sequel to Top Gun. And many different scenarios and plot storylines have been going around as to what this movie was going to be about. And I think with all the rumors that we've had heard before about what they were going to look into or dive into and all that, they did enough to incorporate a lot of those different things and still surprise us with what this movie had to tell. So again, it was just really great. The romance in the movie was really more believable. Like I said, the characters had more depth. There was actually a more cohesive storyline, and not just dropping you into like little bits here and there. Yes, you are somewhat in a school setting, just like the original movie, but there's a purpose now for that, like a real true purpose. And there's a purpose for the ending, a purpose for the whole storyline all through. And it was just really more cohesive. And I thought, and that's one of the things I really truly appreciated about this movie, because I recently went back to the original Top Gun and I rewatched it, and you could see my thoughts on it in my revisited video on the channel. But one of the things that I kind of mentioned was that you're just following these people in a school, and they're there training and hoping to win, this competition, right? And at the end of the original movie, there was this major conflict that just kind of came out of the blue, right? So it's like, oh, well, good thing you guys went to school, so we're going to now put you to the test. And then, everything works out to the end, and woohoo, yay, we did it, we saved the day, which is a very typical 80s type of movie scenario. Here, everyone is brought together because there is a common goal and there is a main purpose and reasoning for them to be there. And then when they have to go through that, the ultimate mission, you understand why that all has to be done. And I think that's another thing that a lot of people will have a takeaway from this movie, is that the storyline made more sense. It wasn't like a generic storyline or anything like that. It was a purpose. There's a purpose and a goal there. So again, really, really well done. Let's talk about the soundtrack too. So again, when I talk about nostalgia, there's no problem and no issues if you are taking bits of things from the original and repurposing them in a new form, but also allowing yourself to put your own twist to it. From the beginning of the movie, we are treated to the soundtrack, the original soundtrack, and you all know it when you hear it. You get a little bit of Kenny Loggins, right? And of course, it brings you back to that moment when you watch the original movie. And I watched the original movie in the theaters. So I was just, it brought back to me being 6 years old, 8 years old in the theater, and feeling that, that moment when I was watching this on the big screen. But Hans Zimmer did a good job at still putting his own influence in the soundtrack and the score. And again, you hear bits of the original stuff, but then modernize and different spins on things like that. Now, Lady Gaga's song is No Take Your Breath Away, but it had its moment and its purpose in the movie, and it was a nice little addition there, just knowing that she was involved in that soundtrack. Could we have used a little bit more Kenny Loggins? Maybe, but that's something that I'm not gonna ding the movie on. But yeah, overall, it was a fully fun experience, and I really can't wait to talk about some of the more further details within this movie. So let me know in the comments what you thought about the movie, your initial thoughts. Was it something that maybe you were overhyped on? Did it live up to your expectations? Were you just never a big fan maybe of the original, and you came into this kind of fresh and just said, I want to see what the buzz is about. I want to see what everyone else is talking about. Tom Cruise is phenomenal in this movie, and he did a really, really great job. It's amazing to see how where he was 36 years ago, the up and coming fresh face, teen heartthrob, all that stuff like that. And then seeing where he is now, where he is probably one of the very few pure action stars that we have right now, with the Mission Impossible movies. And now this really helps solidify Tom Cruise, I really think, as a pure old school action star that is still prominent today. Then you have great performances from Jennifer Connelly. I thought she was a great romance interest in this movie, and again, a romance that worked. And then you have all the supporting characters in there, and they were all great. Everyone did a really great job. Miles Teller is so good in this role, and you really, really get that good sense of chemistry between him and Tom Cruise, and him with everyone else. Yet, yes, you kind of have like that rivalry, just like you saw in the original movie, between Val Kilmer and Tom Cruise and all that. You get a lot of like moments like that, but it really worked, and it didn't feel outdated or anything like that. So let me know again in the comments, but I am about to dive into spoiler territory. So before I do that, if you're brand new to this channel and you're just coming across this video, thank you for watching. If you like what you see and you want to just see more, doesn't cost you a thing. Show your love. Just hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Hit that notification bell so you can get notified of new videos once they're uploaded to the channel. And if you are an audio podcast listener, you can find this episode and many others on your audio podcast platform of choice. Just look for the Low Key Geek channel there, and you can download this and many other episodes there. So, final warning, spoilers ahead, and here we go. Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying this episode so far, but before we continue, I wanted to quickly talk about Bulletproof Coffee. Bulletproof Coffee is my favorite coffee of choice to start off my mornings with. Why? Because it's clean coffee. What does that mean? Well, one, there are no chemicals in it. Why? Because they go through this multi-step process of making sure that all of their beans are fully clean and free of any chemicals, so that when you get the beans delivered to you, it is the pure beans, the pure coffee, the goodness that you've been wanting, the taste, the flavor, and the nutritional value as well, without worrying about any added chemicals or anything else put into the mix there. It also doesn't have that weird acidic taste that some coffees give you. I don't know how about you, but for me, some coffees kind of give me that weird sensation in my stomach, makes me a little burpy, and it kind of drags me down a little bit instead of really waking me up, which is something that I need from my coffee every day. Bulletproof also offers a lot of keto-friendly snacks and supplements, anything that you need to kind of add to your everyday nutritional needs, add to your diet, and make you, and pretty much transforms the way you feel every day. So for a limited time, if you use this code that you see on the screen right now, Low Key Geek, all caps, one word, you can get 15% off your order. So what is it better than that, right? Check out the link in the description of this episode. Use this code, get yourself your discount, and make your mornings a little bit more bulletproof with Bulletproof Coffee. Now, back to the episode. So one of the things that really kind of concerned me when the movie was starting, and when the opening credits were coming through, it pretty much almost started note for note how the original movie started. You have your little opening text explaining about the Top Gun school and blah blah blah, this and that. Then it starts off on the aircraft carrier, and you have the original soundtrack there, and you see like everyone prepping planes as they're about to go and this and that. And then the Kenny Loggins Danger Zone kicks in, and I bam 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 bam, and things start heating up and everything. So I started like asking myself, like, oh no, are they just gonna do a note for note rehash of the original movie, just in a more modern setting and different characters and all that stuff? I'm happy to say that this is no Force Awakens situation. They did enough where after that opening kind of credits, once that all played out, the moment the real movie kicked in, it felt different enough already. Obviously the first thing we see is Pete Mitchell, Maverick himself, in his later years, and it looks like he's enjoying some time by himself. He's fixing up a plane, and we get little subtle hints that he has been a test pilot. And that's where he finds himself. He is a test pilot. Apparently he's helping test out, fighter jets or aircraft that can go really fast. And they're currently trying to do something right now and kind of break the Mach 9 speed barrier. But they, due to budget concerns and, the military or the Navy moving forward with technology, they want to move forward with remote control of the aircraft. So like more like drones, robotics and all that stuff like that, which has been rumored was going to be a major plot point in if they were ever to do a Top Gun sequel. So I liked how they kept that in there, but that did not take full hold of the entire movie or an entire plot of the movie. Pete, being the insubordinate that he is, kind of goes against the direct orders from the admirals there, and he decides to take the aircraft out for that spin to break that Mach 9 or break Mach 10, which is now they're saying is the new target goal that they have to reach. So it was really, really interesting to see that Pete hasn't really changed. He's still he's still a hot shot. He's not good with authority, which was very, very, very interesting to see. We learned, because if you remember from the original movie, the movie ends with him saying that he's interested in teaching, right? And he wants to be a teacher in Top Gun and all that. So as the movie progresses, we learn that he only lasted 2 months. He feels his purpose is within the cockpit. He is a flyer, he is a fighter, and that's what he does. He's a pilot, right? But it also sounds like that he's formed a even worse rep than we originally left him at. So some bridges have been burned, and he's looked upon as kind of like this black sheep in the Navy, right? He's remained captain. He could have been promoted several times, but he just refuses because he feels like he is where he's supposed to be. But this is one of the interesting points about Maverick in the movie, is that Maverick is now going through a phase where he is kind of quote unquote outdated. So he is kind of forced to really have to let go and grow up, which is something that obviously we would not have expected to see from Maverick, but things that progress in the movie kind of lend itself to like, all right, Pete, your days in the glory and your hot shot way of thinking, that has to change a little bit, right? You have to be a little bit more mature. You have to start thinking about those around you and all that, which is really, really interesting. And like I said, we're getting more of a story than we've ever gotten with Pete from the original movie. Like we're getting more depth with this character, and I really, really love that. So later on they tell him that there is this important mission that has to be accomplished, and the only way to do it is if we have human pilots to do so, because it's so intricate and it's so detailed, and people have to be able to work on the fly and all that stuff like that. So they bring him back to Top Gun to instruct the top pilots of the day to perform this mission. And again, keeping it very ambiguous with who the conflict is against. We just know that there's this silo that has to be destroyed because it poses a threat, biochemical whatever threat, but it needs to be taken out, right? So it's really, really like I said before, we now have a fleshed out storyline. This is a conflict. We need to do all of these things in order to address this conflict and then carry out the mission at the end. So we're not being thrown into just like bits and bits and bits in here and just hanging out. Like the first movie felt like a hangout movie, where you're just hanging out with a group of dudes, trying to outbest each other to prove that they're the best pilot ever, right? And then all of a sudden, oh wait, there's a conflict. Now we got to go and use what we've learned to do what we got to do. So I like the fact that there's this full story all throughout. Very early on, we get to see what the relationship is with Tom Cruise and Miles Teller's character. So obviously in the trailer, if you haven't paid that much attention to, Miles Teller plays Goose's son. Now they could have done the easy way out or the simple story plot line where there's a conflict between the two because the son is angry at Maverick for the death of his father, right? And leaving him fatherless. But we learned that that is not the case. The main case that we learn here, or the main reason why there is that tension and conflict between the two, is because Maverick held Goose's son back from joining the Navy, which is an interesting twist there. So it delayed his career from what they say in the movie 4 years. So Goose's son could have been something else at this point. But because of what Maverick did in Maverick's intervention, Now Goose's son is where he's at, right? Which is, again, very, very interesting twist to what they could have easily done. The reasoning we also find out because of that is Goose's wife, who in the original movie was played by Meg Ryan, because of what happened to Goose, did not want her son to join the Navy, did not want him to do anything remotely similar to what the dad did. So, as a favor to her, Maverick decided to pull his application out. Hence why that happened. Obviously, Goose's son was able to go in there and do it anyway and get through, but that's what caused the tension and the conflict. And the main tension is because Goose's son has no idea why Maverick did that. There was a touching moment between Jennifer Connelly's character, who plays an admiral's daughter, and I'll get more in details about that later. Basically, they talk about that situation, and she asks Maverick, have you ever told him the reason why you did that? And basically he said, like, I don't need him to be mad at his mom. He's already mad at me for whatever he wants to be mad at. There's no reason to be mad at his mom, because guess what? His mom is dead. His mom passed away. So Goose's son, in a way, is in a similar situation that Maverick found himself in the original movie. No family. All he can really do is rely on his friends and his fellow colleagues. So the great thing about this storyline between the relationship of Maverick and Goose's son, and I'll instead of always calling him Goose's son, let me pull up his real name here, because we should give proper respect. Bradley Bradshaw. That's a very American name, isn't it? Bradley Bradshaw. But Jennifer Connelly's name is Penny Benjamin, right? But Bradley and Maverick, the chemistry and relationship there, again, it mimics almost the same situation, like I said, in the original movie. So it kind of forces Maverick to want to be that mentor, be that father figure, be that supporter that maybe he was lacking, especially once Goose died in the original movie. Because we already know that Maverick had a chip on his shoulder because he was living up to his father's reputation in the Navy. Father's dead, gone missing on a mission, no mom to be seen. So Maverick was alone. And in a scene in the original movie, Maverick even mentions that Goose is his only family. Goose's family is his family. Goose dies, he loses that. Because obviously he feels the burden that it was his fault that Goose died. I mean, let's be clear. I personally think it was Iceman's fault. It was Val Kilmer's fault as to why Goose died. If, he didn't move out of the way earlier enough and let Maverick handle the situation, then that would have been a different story, right? So it kind of created the dynamic that Maverick wanted to be there for Bradley, which is very touching. And again, a sign of maturity of Maverick's character. But like I said in the beginning, they really, really kind of quickly unravel that as you're watching them, because Bradley's part of the top elite and he is there in the training mission at Top Gun, and Maverick is their instructor, right? And it was very interesting to see Maverick being an instructor, by the way, because he pushes these kids, man. We already know Maverick is this insane pilot, and he can do things like no other. And he really puts these people to the test. I mean, it's seeing those training scenes and how they could never outwit Maverick is unbelievable. And it was just a lot of fun to watch all of that transpire. To the point where none of them were even really remotely able to complete the full training, because they kept pushing the mission up further and further as the conflict grows and grows, or the window shrinks. And it gets to the point where everyone is feeling that there's no way we're gonna accomplish this movie. No pilot can do what is needed to be done, until Maverick shows them and proves them wrong, which was an amazing thing to watch also. And again, one of those like feel good, aspiring moments in the movie that we don't really see often. I feel like, again, it's like a nice little homage to like 80s type of movies, right? So, you know, Maverick is their teacher and all that stuff like that. And the reason why Maverick gets away with what Maverick gets away with is because he does still have that one person that's looking out for him. And it's the last person that you would have ever expected. And that's Iceman, Val Kilmer. The way that they managed Val Kilmer's character in this movie is amazing. It's probably the best way you could have ever handled it. Because if you're not familiar, Val Kilmer has throat cancer. That's one of the reasons why he stopped acting for a while. But it limits his ability to speak. He has a hard time talking. So knowing that Val Kilmer was going to be in this movie, one of the first things I had to ask was like, how are they going to handle it? Is he even going to show up? So it was Val Kilmer, it was Iceman who requested Maverick to teach these pilots to accomplish this mission. And we learned that it's Iceman who's been covering up for Maverick's insubordination and all that stuff like that. So we get to see text messages between Iceman and Maverick. So there's a presence there, right? Which was very smart the way they handled it. Then there's a meeting. So Maverick has to go to his house to finally meet up with him when things are just not working out at the training. We learned from Iceman's wife, that there's a condition that Iceman has been going through that came back, and now it doesn't look that good. And the way that they even address it is like, it's gotten to the point where he can't even speak. Boom. Easy way to manage that situation, and it worked. It wasn't hokey, it wasn't corny, and it wasn't forced, which is so good, so well done. And then you get to see Val on screen, and man, Val, whether it's makeup or what have you, he looks like Iceman. He really does. And he's communicating with Maverick on the computer because he can't talk. And they have this great heart-to-heart talk about, you know, again, it's about the progression of the character of Maverick. Maverick has to grow up. Maverick has to let go. He can't have that burden of Goose's death over his head. You know, Iceman tells Maverick, the Navy needs a Maverick, and always does. And that's why he's still there. That's why he's always going to be around. And then again, when they stand up and you hear Val actually talk a bit, whew, gave me all the feels, all the emotion. And which, again, unfortunately makes it even more heartbreaking when Iceman finally dies and he succumbs to his illness. And you see it in Maverick's face, like, oh no, another part of my family is now gone. Now I have nobody. Nobody has my back. No one can speak up for me. He's done. He is literally now on his own. And that's why the relationship between him and Jennifer Connelly's character of Penny made sense. this romance between the two made sense. One, because there's a history there. Now, if you remember in the original movie, it's mentioned that Maverick has gotten into trouble because of something that happened between him and the Admiral's daughter.
The section leader 3 times, put in hack twice by me, with a history of high-speed passes over 5 air-controlled towers and 1 Admiral's daughter. Penny Benjamin.
This is the Admiral's daughter. So they have a history. And apparently Maverick has a thing with admirals where he's always pissing admirals off, right? But there's a history there. And it's not something that was so easily expected. You see Penny pushing back. You know, let's not do this again. Stop giving me that look. I love how that's like a common thing throughout the whole movie. It's like, I don't like that look on your face. Well, it's only the look I got. You know, or Penny, every time she said, don't give me that look, Pete, you know, because, you know, Maverick is cocky, right? And he's one of them, you know, macho guys who thinks he can get whatever he wants just by winking at you or doing whatever he does. But it was something that had to be earned, the relationship between the two, and not something that just so happened so quickly and out of the blue and out of left field and everything. But what also made the relationship believable and meaningful is because now she's trying to push Maverick along. She's being there for Maverick for everything. And again, pushing Maverick along in that progression that needs to happen. He needs to get past all the ghost of the past, all the baggage, and do him and do what he is needed to be done for the kids, for the younger generation. And it was such a great thing to finally see. And the chemistry between Tom Cruise and Jennifer Connelly is phenomenal. She is so good in this movie. Not only is she breathtaking, but I mean, Jennifer Connelly, we already know she's a great actress. And I think it was perfect casting to have her in this movie. And the chemistry was there. It really worked. And she was able to provide that shoulder, that kind of guiding light for Maverick's character, which again, really worked in the story. Now, let's talk about the mission itself, because I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of comparisons here into what I'm going to be talking about. The mission is basically a ripoff of the Death Star trench mission in Star Wars: A New Hope. Star Wars. Basically, you have to have these fighter jets pretty much like at the highest speed possible go through this canyon. And they have to fly really low to avoid all the anti-air, the surface to air missiles, the SAMs, right? Because if they go above a certain level, the radar picks it up, it's automatic targeting, and boom, they're dead, right? So they have to stay really low, top speed, going through the canyon, go over a mountain until there's a little target. And it was like a little shaft that they have to bomb. And then escape without getting either hit by the missiles or without having to deal with engagement from enemy pilots. Am I wrong? It's the trench scene. It's exactly the same thing, except the only difference here is that there has to be 2 runs, one after the other. One to kind of like open the window, so to speak, and one to do the final killing blow. So you have 2 sets of 2 going to accomplish this mission. I laughed. I laughed when that whole mission was revealed, and it was revealed in a very Star Warsy way where they have like the map and they have the simulation of what needs to be done, the close up on the target, what, the explanation and everything like that. The only thing missing was like a real Mon Mothma character explaining about how they got these plans and all this kind of stuff like that, how they got the intelligence. But it was Star Wars. So I'm pretty sure the writers, they kind of, it was like a little nod to Star Wars there. But it was still believable, right? And again, them having to accomplish a mission like that seemed impossible until Maverick was able to show them. Maverick did it on his own in training, right? And it kind of lifted the spirits up of everybody. It's like, if Maverick, this old geezer Maverick, can do it, why can't we? And it was done at a point where Iceman dies, so the commanding general or admiral, I forget, John Hamm's character, was like, look, I'm taking over the training. I never wanted you to be part of the training in the first place. I was doing this because Iceman said so. He's now not here. You're out. And we're going to do this my way. But his way was too slow. And he didn't care about casualties. Pete Maverick cared about all the pilots. He not only did he want this mission to be accomplished, but he wanted everyone to come out and come home alive. John Hamm, on the other hand, didn't care about any of that stuff. He was like, look, let's get this mission accomplished. There will be casualties, and that is to be expected. But as long as the mission is done, then we're gravy. And, Pete was like, nah, man, can't. Your way is the wrong way. I'm going to show you how my way works. And he did it on his own in training. And because of that, the one thing that they really didn't want to do had to happen. And that is it forced Maverick to lead the attack, to lead the mission. Maverick was just there to train, but they made him the leader. And then that, that's the story, right? And so, again, really, really awesome stuff. And I love how they were able to do that. Now, before I get into the mission itself, remember when I said that, they took things from the original movie that maybe we poked fun at and either expanded on them, provided more depth for them, or created a purpose. So one of the funniest things that we laughed at in the original movie was the volleyball scene, right? Because it felt like it really came out of nowhere. And it's just bros hanging out and having a good time. Here, they took that idea, that concept, and they spun it. Because what Maverick wanted to accomplish was teamwork. And it got to the point where everyone was just really against each other. Right? Tensions were high. Everyone was trying to do their best, but everyone was trying to outdo everyone. Right? And with your cast of pilots here, by the way, I have to say they did a really good job with casting a very diverse group. We have a female pilot, and she was phenomenal in this movie. I believe the actress is Monica Barbaro, who played call sign Phoenix. She was going up against Glenn Powell's character, Hangman, obviously Bradley, Miles Teller. But you had so many people who were just like vying for that leadership role, best of the best role, right? So tensions were extremely high. Plus, there was tensions because none of the other students understood what that relationship was between Bradley and Maverick. So there was, a rumor, or they had the feeling that there was favoritism involved, which wasn't the case. And that even created more tension, right? So how did we loosen the tension up? Let's play sports by the beach. And that's what they did. And it wasn't volleyball. It was 2 games of touch football happening at the same time in the same group to simulate dogfighting. How brilliant is that? That's great writing. and a purpose. It created a purpose to not only loosen the tension, but to get everyone working together as one team. Brilliant. Brilliant. Again, using the stuff that we joked about, but then flipping it and making it mean something. And that's the thing about this movie. There was a lot of things that were very meaningful, made you care, made you invested in the characters, in the situations, in the scenarios, and in the overall story. So I thought that was so well done. Extremely, extremely well done. And I couldn't be even more happy with whatever. Like I said, the cast is phenomenal. Val Kilmer, for me, is the standout, because it's just anytime he gets a chance to be on screen these days, I really, truly appreciate it, especially with his condition and all that. Albeit short, it was still phenomenal to see him on the screen. Tom Cruise is a beast, man. Again, I've said it before, solidified as a pure OG action star that still can do it today. Such a great job. And, again, with all the further depth and knowledge that we got with Pete Mitchell, really, really great job. The chemistry with him and Jennifer Connelly, and I already said she was fantastic. Miles Teller was so good in this role. Not only did he look like he could have been Goose's son, but, to kind of provide that mirror of Maverick. In a way, he was kind of like the Maverick. He wasn't as hot-shotty as Maverick was, but he was definitely kind of going through the same things that Maverick was, right? And he wasn't the best of the best. Maverick wanted to be, but we all remember in the original movie, it was Iceman who got the top award. Well, Maverick was dealing with the aftermath of Goose's death, so his performance kind of dipped a bit. But still, right? It was like a humbling experience. And that's the thing. Like, it was a series of humbling experiences for Maverick. But the rest of the cast was just so good. Like, I would love to see, if they ever do another movie, which they don't need to, but if they wanted to progress this movie forward, the story forward, and the lore and the universe forward, I would love to see a movie with this young crew, because everyone is fascinating. Everyone did a really good job. There wasn't any one particular person that I felt was wasted, unnecessary. Everyone who shared the screen had a purpose and did their job. And I thought it was so well done. I also love the fact that as far as bringing people back from the original movie, they really didn't focus a lot on that. You only had 2 people who appeared in the original movie come back here. And that's all you really need. Because again, it's like what I said, not having to rely on the nostalgia. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they could have brought back Tim Robbins, who was kind of a throwaway character in the original movie, but maybe gave him more of a purpose in this one, right? They could have easily have done that. But it was not necessary. They really didn't have to do any of that stuff. So the cast was really great. Now, we'll talk about the main mission and kind of the climax of the movie, right? Because I loved it, but I could see maybe how some people might be like, oh, come on, right? Do one of those. But basically, like I said, Death Star trend scene. They have to go through it. And of course, as they're going through it, things are happening, right? And there was a lot of fake outs in this movie, but very well done fake outs. For example, the first fake out that we were treated to was in the very beginning, when you have Tom Cruise, Maverick, flying this aircraft, breaking Mach 10 finally, right? But Maverick, he has to push himself. So he pushes and he wants to go above 10. And then what happens? Everything fails, system fails, and the aircraft explodes. This is happening like in the first 10, 15 minutes of the movie. So we're thinking, oh no, wait a minute. Are they doing one of those, this is the present, but let's go backwards and see how we got here? But no, they didn't. Excuse me. Because he survived. He landed somewhere. And this movie also had a lot of funny moments, a lot of comedic moments. And that was like one of the first ones where he walks into this diner and he's kind of like disheveled and he just wants some water. And he's like, where am I? And the kid looks at him like this weird alien and is like, you're on Earth, which is really, really hilarious. But, you know, they're going through their mission. And of course, what would be any action movie without some tension and suspense and, you know, last minute stuff, right? So things aren't working out as they should. Targeting system's not working, so you have to go by the fly and all that stuff. Now there's this huge scramble to get the hell out of there. After they successfully did what they had to do, they bombed the hell out of this thing and they blew it up. But now they have to escape all the SAMs and potential incoming bogeys, right? And I think I'm using the word bogey wrong, if you know, but you know, enemy fighters. And this creates this manic action sequence of everyone scrambling, you know, getting away from these missiles that are flying all over the place. You know, you got maneuvers and flares, blah, 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 this and that. So you get to the point where the one who is in pure danger is Benjamin, Goose's son. Because he was the last group and he was the one that dealt that killing blow to that silo thing. And he's out of flares. And these missiles are coming in hardcore, right? So what does Maverick do? He maneuvers his way above his plane, above Benjamin's plane, and lets go of his flares. But since he was way too close, the missile impact affected Maverick's plane. Maverick goes down. And they're like, we got to go back for Maverick. And orders are coming from John Hamm. No one's re-engaging. Everyone got to get their butts back to base. And we're all left wondering, like, is this the end? Are we just going to have Maverick die now? Close the story out like that? Cuts to black. Then we see Maverick on the floor, right? Wherever he landed. But enemy choppers coming in and is firing at him and all that stuff. And it looks like he's toast. And then boom, chopper blows up. Goose's son saves the day. Or so we think. Goose's son's plane gets shot down. So now he crashes. And then they have this funny moment where they meet up and they're like, what the hell are you, Maverick's yelling at him, like, what are you doing here? You should have never came back for me. The whole purpose of what I did to save your life is so that you can go back and return home. And Benjamin is like, no, F you, dude. Like, I came to save you. And it's like, well, why did you do that? It's because exactly what you told me. I don't think, I just do. Which is another running theme in the movie, right? Because that was Maverick's motto from the very beginning. You don't have time to think when you're up there, because when you think, you die. So you just got to do. You just got to act, right? So now they're wondering, how the hell are we going to get out of here? Now, this is the part where it felt a little bit like True Lies to me. A little bit ridiculous and not something that we would have expected from a Top Gun movie, because it was one of the rare moments where we have a grounded conflict situation. So what do? They go into the enemy base, and it was revealed earlier on that these guys, for whatever reason, still has old school F-14s. Those are the same planes that we saw in the original Top Gun movie 36 years ago. And of course, they're way outdated. Everyone, what they were flying for this mission were F-18s, more advanced technology, all this stuff like that. But you have Maverick, who's flown those planes. He became famous because of those aircrafts, right? So in a perfect Top Gun world and storyline, let's end it with them going back to old school roots, right? So they invade the base, they get into the plane, and it's so funny seeing Benjamin's character, the character of Benjamin, looking around like, oh my God, everything here is so ancient. I don't know how any of this stuff works. And you have like Maverick trying his best to like explain, well, to turn on the radar, you got to do this and the radio, and he's like, well, how do I do all that? It's like, look, kid, I don't know. That was your dad's job. I was just the pilot. I was just flying and making sure that we get the hell out of Dodge or whatever. So in very Top Gun fashion and Tom Cruise fashion, right? They get out of the base, but they're being approached now by enemy fighters, right? And you know, the history of Maverick was that, which like what we saw at the ending moments of the original Top Gun, he took down 3 enemy aircraft, and he was one of the few that were able to do that. But unfortunately, they're being chased down by 4. And he's like, I can do this, but they have no radar. So that means they have like no use of missiles or anything like that, right? And the ingenious way of them writing the whole dogfight situation, with Maverick having to use his instincts, is just brilliant. And it really shows you again how amazing of a pilot Maverick was. And he's able to maneuver and use the enemy's fire against themselves and everything. But then they're being chased down by the one left remaining enemy pilot. And just when you think things are dire, you know, they're getting hit left and right. They're not going to survive anymore. They try to eject out. Eject's not working. So they're done for, right? Boom. In comes the main rival, and who I guess you could kind of see him as a mix of Iceman and Maverick in one, and that's Glenn Powell's Hangman character. The guy who thought he was the top dog of the whole thing. He was able to join up with them and take out that last pilot, enemy pilot, to make sure that everyone else goes home. And then the movie ends with, you know, hurrah, yay, we did it. But, you know, I still want to be with Penny, because I made a promise and a vow that I'm not doing this thing anymore where I hook up and run away, hook up and run away. I need you. I care about you. You know, there was this great moment where they hooked up and she has a daughter, right? And, you know, the daughter's familiar with Maverick and all that stuff like that. So you could tell that there's a history. Again, love the fact that there's already history there. So you have the daughter was supposed to stay at a friend's house, and then all of a sudden just shows up home. So Jennifer Connelly is like, you got to get out of here, but you got to leave through the window, because I'm trying to set a precedence for my daughter as to what's proper handling and all that stuff like that. And we hear something that we would never heard from Maverick. He's like, this is the last time I'm leaving out the window. From now on, I'm leaving out through your door, because I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done with the meaningless relationships and all that. Like, this is something that I'm going to stick to. And you see him like kind of like jumping out of the window, all in the clear, but then he sees the daughter through the window. Haha moment. But then the daughter says, promise me you're not going to break her heart again this time. Ooh, feels, right? So he comes back, and we learned that she's also like a sailor. She loves sailing. And there was this really cute moment of her teaching him how to sail and all that stuff. Goes back to the bar where she runs, and she, you know, he's told that, oh, they went on a kind of like a trip on the boat. Well, when is she gonna get back? I don't know. She didn't tell me. So you think, okay, Maverick has lost his chance, right? Maybe she couldn't handle the fact that he had to go through this mission, and she's not sure he's ever gonna come back alive. fast forward a little bit. Now you see Maverick and Benjamin. Why do I keep calling him Benjamin? It's Bradley. Sorry, Bradley. BB. I'm going to call him BB. Him and BB working on the same plane together. Looks like things are cool with them. They're hanging out. And who shows up? Penny does, right? So it looks like everything is worked out for Maverick in the end. And that's how the movie concludes, with Penny and Maverick in the aircraft that they were working on, flying around, doing the thing that Maverick loves, and that's flying, right? We don't know where he is in his career at the moment. We don't know what are the real after effects after the mission has been accomplished, his standing with the Navy. But it looks like everything is A-okay and everything is hunky-dory and everything is fine. And that's how the movie ends. Again, it's very reminiscent to an 80s type of movie, like an old school movie that we don't really see that much of anymore. And that's one of the many, many, many reasons why this movie is fantastic. The ending was satisfying. I didn't need additional exposition on a lot of stuff. That's the story and that's what you got. That's it. That's why I really don't care if they ever made another sequel to this movie. I would love to see it. Don't get me wrong. I'll be right there, ready for it. But there's no need. No one ever thought we were going to get a sequel to the original Top Gun, but you could kind of see how it would be warranted, because there's still things we could have learned more about if you were really invested in those characters, right? But really, really well done. The movie didn't feel long at all. It was like just a little over 2 hours. I felt like I could have seen maybe another 20 minutes, right? But it was satisfying. It was just really, really good. Soundtrack was great. The action scenes were off the chain. Again, I couldn't stop wondering, is this the real one? Is this really Tom Cruise in the plane? Was anyone else in real planes? Because it really looked convincing. All of it did. There were some moments where I'm like, okay, this can't be real. But there were so many moments that the action scenes felt so real. I mean, and you see, if you look at the credits, you could see that they did use a lot of real air flights and aircrafts and things like that to do a lot of the action scenes. But it just felt so good, so well done, so well put together, really. If there was going to be any criticism for this movie, I will say that maybe some people might say that it does run a lot of parallels to the original movie, because there are certain beats that do kind of make you feel like the original, like you're watching the original, but I don't think it was a distraction or anything to ding this movie on, because even though there were those kind of moments that were like, wait a minute, this does kind of feel like how it was in the original, it didn't harp on it. It didn't rely on it. It didn't use those moments as crutches just to kind of rehash things from the original movie. This movie still felt original on its own, but still giving that proper nod to the original movie, to the first movie. So I won't be surprised if I hear people kind of mentioning things like that. But other than that, I loved it. I am dying to see this movie again. I really cannot wait to watch this movie again. This is one of those rare moments where this is a movie I can see myself watching over and over again, and there aren't that many movies out there that I can easily say that with. And like I said, when it comes to sequels, I think by far this is one of the best sequels I have ever seen. And I love sequels. Empire Strikes Back. For a long time, this is my #1 sequel ever. Yes, I'm a Star Wars fan, but I thought this was a perfect sequel. I don't know if Top Gun Maverick overtakes it, dethrones it, but it's really, really close. It definitely ranks up there with like Terminator 2, Aliens. I don't know if you could really call Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom a proper sequel. to the first Indiana Jones, because you kind of go backwards in time or something. I forget right now how it was. But it remained consistent with the tone of the characters and the universe that they're in. And without, and I know I sound like a broken record, without have to rely so heavily on the original, on nostalgia, rehashing things over again. They didn't feel they had to do that. They did it enough, but still kept it unique, fresh, and new for this movie and for the new generation of people who are going to be watching it. So again, I love this movie. I really do. And I'm so curious and interested to hear what all of you think about it. So let me know. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are, how you felt watching this movie. If you weren't planning on watching the movie and you decided to stick around and listen to me talk about some of the spoiler stuff, has it changed your mind? Are you now invested and maybe you want to check it out for yourself? Let me know. Let me know what you think, because I do feel like this movie deserves a watch if you appreciate anything that I've mentioned. So with that being said, if you're interested to hear about my thoughts and my revisit of the original Top Gun, make sure to check out the video that you see on the screen right now. Again, thank you so much for watching. Hit the like, subscribe, notification bell to be notified of future episodes and videos. Podcasts, Low-Key Geek podcast channel. You could download this episode and more. And thank you again. Stay cool, stay classy, stay safe, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace out, everyone.